Montanans can take great pride in the strong and dedicated access to justice community in our state. Both locally and statewide, legal aid providers, private attorneys, and many others have made great strides in bringing our low-income Montanans ever closer to equal justice. Despite these significant accomplishments, so much remains to be done. Cuts in federal funding for civil legal aid over the past decade have seriously hindered our ability to meet the civil legal needs of Montana's vulnerable and underserved populations. 1 in 3 folks eligible for civil legal assistance is turned away due to lack of resources. The mission of the Montana Justice Foundation, or MJF, is to provide funding and other support services to legal aid programs and providers to increase access to justice for low-income Montanans. Because, of course, without access to justice, equal justice is just a broken promise, a hopeless dream. MJF grantee organizations, currently nearly a dozen in number, provide civil legal aid and increased access to justice primarily to clients living at or below 125% of the federal poverty rate. The provided services focus on clients' most basic human needs: preserving housing, protecting subsistence income, obtaining access to health care, providing food and clothing for families, and maintaining their safety, independence, and dignity. This video tells only a small part of the access to justice story in Montana and the quiet but critical work the MJF does with its grantee organizations. The following are only a few stories about real people who have real problems. Without the attorneys, organizations, and volunteers shown, these Montanans would not be helped. And without the support of the Montana Justice Foundation, this work, replicated thousands of times each year, would not be possible.
I was in an abusive relationship for 4.5 years, and I decided to leave him and get a restraining order. Doves helped me. They provided me with an attorney.
DOVES is Domestic Violence Education and Services. DOVES works to address and prevent domestic and sexual violence through community outreach, prevention, education and information, and advocacy for victims of violent crime.
She was there for me the day of my hearing and defended me. And I couldn't have done that without her. That was very hard facing my husband in that. And a while after the restraining order, I filed for divorce with Brandy's help. However, the divorce was never final because my husband died in a car accident in February.
Following her husband's death, Julie's in-laws tried to coerce Julie into signing away her rights to the home she and her husband had shared. Through a program funded by the Montana Justice Foundation, Doves was able to provide Julie access to an estate attorney.
With their help, I was able to get my home, and things were settled between his parents and myself. Without Doves, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. They saved my life.
Montana Justice Foundation has provided Doves with the opportunity to provide legal services to people who could not otherwise afford an attorney, and there is a huge need in the state of Montana for additional legal services for these clients. Without Montana Justice Foundation's funds, I don't think that we would probably be in the position that we are in to be able to offer those services.
He's given me a black eye. He's given me a fat lip before. Actually, in the same evening, he really messed my face up at least once. Most of the time, he would do things that wouldn't leave marks.
When Vera ended her relationship with her abusive partner, Tony left Vera's house, but he took their son Shane with him. Tony then left the child with his grandmother.
I was afraid of allowing my son to go see his father and his grandmother, and there was even an episode where they refused to give me my son back. I called Montana Legal Services and told them my situation, what was going on.
Montana Legal Services Association is Montana's only statewide civil legal aid provider. Vera and Shane's story demonstrates the impact an MJF-funded attorney can have on survivors of domestic violence.
Legal Services really helped with Shane's dad and his grandmother. So now the grandmother and I work together. I basically share custody with her. We have set rules for Shane's dad, and if he doesn't meet the requirement, she makes him leave. If I hadn't been able to go to legal services, I would maybe get to have visitation with my son. They would have gotten complete custody because they really played on the fact that I was in a wheelchair. With the legal services, we were able to show them and show the judge that I can take care of him, I have been. Okay, Shane, you want to pull this weed? We took him from a very scared and upset little boy to a normal 5-year-old little boy.
Montana Justice Foundation funding is absolutely critical to forming and fulfilling our mission. We need those funds to make sure that we can reach the people that we want to reach, that the kind of access we provide is exactly what our clients need. And they can't get access if we don't have enough staff out there. And having the Justice Foundation funding is what provides that, our ability to provide the access to those clients.
When the children initially go into foster care, I think they're all very frightened and confused. They know that things have not been right at home.
Court-appointed special advocates, or CASAs, are volunteers who represent the best interest of children in cases asserting abuse and neglect. They help the children, and they help the judges who must decide the children's futures.
You know, in this case that I'm working on now, they were actually very afraid, often. In fact, the one daughter, the oldest child, said that she made sure she was always the last one to go to sleep at night. She would never go to sleep until her mom was asleep because she was afraid that mom would wake up or would get up and start abusing. You know, it was usually physical abuse. For sure, we're just an extra voice that can point out some issues or some potential problems that a caseworker may not observe or just may not be aware of. Our service is one that would probably not otherwise be provided.
So every CASA gets to know the child pretty much on a personal basis. And if a case goes for 4 or 5 years, you are the one steady, constant thing in their life. Because they could probably go through 4 or 5 attorneys. They could go through 4 or 5 social workers. But you have one CASA, and that CASA stays with you. And that is the commitment that the CASA makes. The Montana Justice Foundation helps us with our in-service training and our travel to the rural areas. We used to have to do this by telephone a lot and by mail, and now we are able to reach out to these counties. The retention for our volunteers is a lot stronger. So the Montana Justice Foundation dollars have helped us be a one-on-one volunteer group.
When you support the Montana Justice Foundation, you support legal services, CASAs, self-help clinics, mediation centers, and other critical components of access to justice. These programs have a significant and positive effect on every Montana community. The MJF relies on the support of attorneys and the greater community to advance its mission of increasing access to justice.
I think it's important to support the Justice Foundation because it's a professional responsibility. Every lawyer has an obligation to provide as much assistance to people that are otherwise unable to get an attorney. But we all recognize that not all attorneys either have the time or the ability to provide those services to clients. One way that they can do that is to support as actively, as fully, and as thoroughly as they can the funding of the Justice Foundation so it can fulfill its mission in getting more people out there access to justice.
I strongly encourage that people and organizations continue to support the Montana Justice Foundation.
You can help by monitoring your IOLTA account to ensure a fair rate of interest. You can help by providing pro bono service through your local or statewide pro bono coordinator. And of course, you can help by making periodic charitable contributions to the Montana Justice Foundation. I sure do.